Okay, awesome. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here. Kind of gloomy day. It'll be raining by the time we're done, right? So it's a good day to stay inside for a meeting. My name's Kristen Seaman. I'm the city's environmental resources specialist. If you can't hear me, let me know. I can unmask or speak louder. But we're here to talk about rain gardens in the neighborhood as part of the road rehab project. So first, just really simply, what is a rain garden? It's a shallow depression planted with really deep-rooted native plants positioned near a runoff source. So we were just speaking of the Colby Lake neighborhood. This image that you see is from one of those. I took the picture standing on the roadside. The water goes in the stormwater grate that you see there. The garden is a little bit lower than the roadside so that the water is able to sink in. Another image of what a rain garden looks like. So it just captures that water, the runoff, stormwater runoff, and lets it all sink into the ground. No standing water more than 48 hours, which is good. That means no extra mosquitoes. I said extra, there will still be mosquitoes. It filters that water into the ground, cleaning it up along the way with the different things in the soil as well as the plants kind of doing their natural thing. With that soaking, it creates a really good planting bed for the rain garden itself, which then makes the plants even happier and grow a little bit better. And really the end goal is that less water goes into the storm sewer, which is better for our lakes and rivers downstream. A couple other side benefits of rain gardens is that they create habitat. They don't require any additional watering. Those native plants are really suited for only receiving the water that they're going to get. So they do good in really dry conditions that we're familiar with now, and then as well as really wet conditions like we're typically used to. And then those flowering plants kind of show up at different times throughout the year, and it can be a really pretty planting bed. Kind of why does this matter and why are you all here? A majority of the Royal Oaks neighborhood drains to Carver Lake. We have a really nice public beach at Carver Lake. There has been increasing occurrences of blue-green algae that we've had to close the beach out of a potential health concern, which blue-green algae can cause harm to human health depending on what kind it is. And then the city and the watershed district require that water quality improvements within the Carver Lake Watershed District are done along with big construction projects like this. So the roadway rehab neighborhood, we're seeking suitable yards for installation of these rain gardens to treat water. And we define suitable yards in this condition as that it's open, there's no existing trees, there's no utilities, gas or electric, and then it's not the location of a future sidewalk. It gets stormwater from the streets automatically or kind of by natural grade. We don't want to put a rain garden at the top of the hill and have all the water flow away from it. And then close to existing stormwater pipes, and that's really just a cost effectiveness thing from the city. Our role is that the city is going to do all the design and construction of the gardens along with the project. The city will commit to the long-term maintenance of the system that's in the road. So we'll clean that up every year or as needed to make sure that the rain gardens get longer lifespans and you're not getting all that extra dirt and debris from the road. And then we're going to pay for all the installation. This is what it looks like when the city comes and cleans the part in the road. So you can see we're not touching the grass. We're not in the yards. We just kind of come by, suck up the debris, and then keep driving. The homeowner's role is that we'll have you sign an operation and maintenance agreement, allowing the city to do the construction there, permitting that to happen for the water to go on your property to be treated, and then agreeing to take care of the plants. So you'll do weeding, plant replacement as needed, and that's it. So the next steps, if you're interested from this point, is that we'll have you sign up for a site visit. City staff will come out to your yard and meet with you to talk about kind of positioning and opportunities and what it would look like in your space. We'll have you sign that agreement so we can get to the design part, and then we'll construct the rain gardens as part of the road rehab. I put just like kind of those high bullet points. I don't want to be here talking too much. I want to be able to answer any questions. And then I have a few flyers up front. You guys received this map of Colby Lake in the mail. It just shows where the other rain gardens that were done as part of that neighborhood project are located if you want to see them in person. Those are close to 10 years old, so they're fully grown in and they look really nice. The homeowners take full responsibility, full care of them. There's this document called the gardening guide that just talks about like what it means to maintain a rain garden. I think it's scarier than it actually is, so it's good to see it in writing, I think. And then we have a draft agreement that says what the city will do and what the homeowner will do, and then kind of that same maintenance plan written out in text. And I only have a few of these copies, but you can have mine for sure. Otherwise, we can exchange emails and get it to you that way. Whew. Are there any questions? Thoughts? Yeah.
Yeah, I got a letter about it, I think, because I'm a good contender for it, since I'm on a corner on a slope.
Great.
Now, is it totally voluntary, or is it where the city can mandate it, say, you're really good fit, we're gonna do it?
Yeah, we're looking for volunteers. We want definitely homeowners to be interested in taking care of that long-term piece of it. But it's not going to be required of anybody, of course. Right? Just kidding. I knew that. Yeah.
I apologize. I didn't realize I came in a little late.
No, that's okay.
But I think in one of your bullets it said there have to be no utilities in your yard.
Mm-hmm.
Don't all yards have utilities?
Yeah, that's a good clarification. So when we like locate where the rain garden will go, we don't want utilities necessarily underneath it. And if we do, we can do a little more investigation that they're deep enough, or like on the side. So definitely we don't want to put a rain garden right over your water main or anything like that. And sometimes the utilities, and based on where the house is positioned on the yard, has more or less of an opportunity for that type of work.
And what you're proposing, does it have to be right next to the street?
Yeah, so it would have to go closest to the road. Just the neighborhood in general, a lot of the yards slope up towards the houses. So at that point, it's really hard to get the garden below the road grade, because that's what you need for gravity to put the water in the garden. Good question. Yeah.
For our online people, would you mind repeating the questions?
Oh, yes, of course.
No problem. And then we've got one online question here.
Okay.
Okay. What type of scour protection will be utilized to prevent erosion where the curb cut meets the garden?
That's a really good question. Do you want me to repeat it?
No.
Okay, I think they heard it.
Well, maybe you should, yeah.
Okay, so the question was what type of scour protection? Again, highly recommend looking at the Colby Lake ones. So the water goes in through the storm structure on the road. Let me flip back to that first picture. And then there's an inlet pop-up so that the water is not really flowing over. I guess this is an example where it's not, but you can see even then the grass has kind of grown in and filled in. Do you have other responses? I haven't spoken much of the design. It can be done a lot of different ways. Do you have a question here?
Yeah, I'm trying to picture this. My neighbor has a sidewalk on this side, and my neighbor has a sidewalk on that side. But I have a rain garden.
Mm-hmm.
People can walk up the sidewalk, walk out the street over to connect the sidewalk on the other side.
No, so that's a good question. The question in summary was locating of rain gardens compared to sidewalks.
Yeah.
And when we kind of did a scouting trip where we drove around and identified homes that looked suitable, at least on face value. And we were looking mostly at houses that are not on the sidewalk side of the road or the proposed sidewalk side, so that you don't have that issue, because yeah, that doesn't really make sense to start and stop and direct people into the street. Yes?
Considering the plant replacement, of course, there's going to be set plants and set spots according to a design and a plan there.
Yep.
As far as putting in substitute and replacement plants,
Mm-hmm.
is that something the city will have available to us to replace as you wish and according to the original plan? Or is that something that the homeowner is free to go out and purchase from a nursery or make similar substitutions, or what's the plan for that?
Yeah, good question. So the question's about replacement plants and if the city will contribute or if the homeowner is kind of free to do as they please. In the long run, you're definitely free to do as you please. The trick with a rain garden is that the flat bottom, kind of the deepest spot, those plants are going to be in water the longest in wet times. They also might be very dried out at times. So you want to place plants that are best suited for that condition. Similarly, the plants that go on the slope of the garden typically see the least amount of water. So you have to have plants that do really good of setting those deep roots to get the water that they need. The city will do maintenance of the vegetation for the first couple of years because young plants and kind of this new condition might not do as well as we want them to, of course. And then it's up to homeowners to do that replacement. We have a number of educated volunteers in the city who I am planning to reach out to see if they'll be interested in doing kind of workshops and those kind of things. We've done a number of those with our watershed districts as well. So we'll definitely serve as a resource, more of a technical resource, and then it would be up to the homeowner to do that long-term plant maintenance. You'll be free to do as you please with it, and you'll see that different rain gardens, some plants like it more than others, and even year to year, I've seen them kind of vary of what comes up and what really takes off in a given year. Good question. Yeah.
How is it handled when they, like in my yard, I have an irrigation system?
Mhm.
How would they handle that part of things?
Wonder if Mike could answer that, how you'd handle irrigation.
Yeah, so. Yeah, I'm going over here, your slide.
Yes, the question was about irrigation systems and how that comes into play with these rain gardens. Typically with these road construction projects, if we're doing work along the curb and it impacts irrigation, the homeowner is responsible for protecting that. With these being more into backyards and into private property, it might be something we'll have to look at on a case-by-case basis. So that's something that when we meet in the field, we can look at that with you.
Okay. And now that we're on the topic, so my irrigation system, I know there's some of the spouts come up right along the curb. So I'm guessing that I'm gonna need to do something about that when you guys come take the curbs out.
Right, we'll talk about, so the question was about, this is more about the road construction project with the curb work. Right, when the curb comes out, that's the homeowner's responsibility, and we'll talk about that. We've got a meeting at 7 o'clock too, where it's the more generic construction. So we'll talk more about that.
Okay.
Yeah,
A couple of questions.
sure.
First one, we got here a little bit late, so I didn't see the whole
Oh,
presentation.
no worries.
What is the typical size?
Yeah, that's a great question. Typical size, they can vary. It depends on space. We'll do some of that work on the front end too to make sure that we're sizing it appropriately. We don't want to pass like the whole width and length of a road towards one small rain garden. It will just be inundated with water and won't do the treatment that we're looking for. So it'll be sized appropriately to the watershed is the worst answer I can give you, the best answer. So these ones you'll see, I'm not really great on square feet. I would say visually, they look maybe like between Mike and myself, and they're typically round in size. I don't know if you guys have a plan size or if any of your analysis have shown.
We were assuming about 20 feet long, about 10 feet wide.
Okay.
Just kind of general dimensions and about 18 inches deep.
20 by 10, 18 inches deep.
We will need to do a field visit to understand how it'll fit in your yard. And we'll be done that.
And I
Yeah.
guess the second question is this open to anybody in Royal Oak?
Good question.
Or are there just specific properties that you're targeting?
Yeah, so we did some site analysis to identify properties. Sorry, the question was if it's open to everyone in Royal Oaks or just specific properties. We did some quick review to make sure there wasn't any obvious issue of why your yard might not be suitable before you received this invite. Like if you have a tree or if from the road your yard slopes way up, that's just really hard to construct to get what we need to get out of this. But otherwise open to anyone who has a suitable yard is the plan.
We started by looking at people that were interested on our earlier feedback forms, and then identified properties that would work, and then we moved you to this process here. So you've made it through kind of 2 rounds. If you have neighbors who have never responded to this and they're interested, share this with them. We're happy to work with them and see if they're suitable for rain garden.
So the people that got information for the meeting here at 6 are all on the list. Not everybody got that.
Correct.
Royal Oaks?
Correct.
Yeah.
You were a selected targeted audience.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got an online question if you don't mind.
Yeah, thanks.
Question.
Go
Our neighbors told us about this.
Oh, good.
And we did receive in the mail. The location of the rain gardens that was in our invite was the Colby Lake. We live in the Foxborough Court area.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure which side of our property you're talking about,
Mhm.
but we're a center house. So we're in a pond, the cul-de-sac.
Okay.
So we don't have a lot of property on each side
Mhm.
of the driveway.
Okay.
And the side that I think you're talking about, our neighbors right there too. They don't have a lot of property right there. It's like I said, it's high. So
Yeah.
we might have that much and we've got that much, but how is that going to work? Will our neighbor have to be part of that rain garden too for it to work?
That's a good question. I would think that'd be best discussed probably on site so we can kind of all see it. If your neighbor's interested in as well, I have seen it work kind of where neighbors or homeowners can kind of collaborate on a shared space. If it's otherwise not used, would be beneficial as a garden, then that's definitely something that we could discuss if it's an opportunity. And apologies on my part of the Colby Lake neighborhood being mailed to you. That was just as an example to show you if you wanted to go see where some other rain gardens in the city were. But now I realize it was confusing.
I just didn't know
Yeah.
where you're talking about.
Yeah, and we didn't probably take that far of an assessment analysis to lay out where it would land on your property. We were kind of just looking, make sure no trees, no utilities right through the middle. Make sure that it was flat enough that a rain garden could be constructed. Kind of quick glance to get to this group.
And you're talking just front yards, not the backyards.
Yeah, so we want the water from the street to come in and be treated. So yeah, it would be front yards unless. No, yeah, it would be front yards, or side yards potentially.
In our backyard,
Mhm.
the drainage goes through our backyard, back our neighbor's backyard, and it goes out to the street
Okay.
behind us.
Yep. So all that runoff is considered private because it's just the water that's flowing from the sky onto private property and then through the backyards. So we're constructing these rain gardens to treat as large a quantity, again, appropriate for the rain garden, but as much as possible. And we just don't see that much treatment when it comes from that private, like water falling on your house and then into the garden. It's a great thing to do, but not what we're aiming for with this project. Do you want to hit the online question, or we got a few other hands?
Is it online? Can you hear your mic online?
Maybe. Hold on.
If a property will sell after entering into an agreement for a rain garden, how does the duties of maintaining the garden get transferred to the new owners?
Sure. That's a good question. In the past, we have just had the agreement be signed and kind of just good faith. Like anything, if you had a garden in your front yard or a foundation garden, you would expect the next people would probably take care of it in some type of way, especially with these rain gardens. For them to remove it, would it require additional like fill and dirt to come in? We're still kind of discussing in the details of what that agreement looks like, and whether or not it would be recorded on the property is not determined yet. We would definitely tell you ahead of time before you sign anything if it's going to be, but we are just discussing with the watershed district still of what their requirements are versus our requirements so that we don't miss the mark on that. Good question. Yes.
I expressed an interest in a rain garden when I did the survey and didn't hear anything further after.
Okay.
Does that mean that the decision has been made that my property is not suited?
That's a good question. So you were interested in a rain garden and you did not receive the letter that the rest of the group did. We can definitely have further discussion. Maybe you have information that we weren't seeing in the field, or maybe we overlooked something. Definitely interested in getting as many rain gardens constructed with this project as possible. So maybe just you and I should connect and we can talk about the specifics there. And there was a question in the back. Did you still have your question?
Yeah, I think
similar, I heard about this from a neighbor,
Okay.
I didn't receive a letter either, but, I think I probably know why. So our property, we've thought about a rain garden for a long time.
Awesome.
And primarily, we live at the bottom of a hill and we get the entire street's runoff in our
Okay.
backyard. And then it gets to our front yard, which then floods the street. We end up with ice all along the roadway, all here, all the way along. Anyhow, so we've talked about doing a rain garden in our backyard. I understand that makes sense with this. Are there resources in your team available if that's something we were interested in doing on our own level? But we don't have the know-how
Sure.
about that. Are there resources we could tap into to learn more about what we would want to do to?
Yeah.
If the ideas we have, like, would that help?
Yeah. Definitely, that's a great question. So the question being, if you're maybe not suited or qualified to get a rain garden as part of the road rehab project, can you do one on your own and how can the city assist? We partner with the Washington County Conservation District. They're just housed in Oakdale, not very far away. We partner with them. They do free site visits, where they'll meet you out in your yard, preferably not in winter, so they can see the lay of the land. And they can advise you on opportunities, maybe challenges. If you have a specific issue, like consistent ice would be a good one, that they can help kind of brainstorm ideas. They also do, they put together plans and then work with our watershed districts, and they have the funding available. So I would guess you could get a pretty good grant to do that type of thing, kind of outside of the road rehab project.
Yeah, it's not even I mean, obviously a grant would be great, but
yeah,
it's not even the funding, it's I don't know.
Yeah.
I hear rain garden and it sounds like that would be, anyhow. Are
Yeah.
you Kristen?
Yep.
So if I email you, could you?
Yes, definitely. That's great. Yeah, and so they do kind of from the first question of what should I do all the way to like, okay, now you can hire a contractor and here's what to do it. So they do a really good technical service that way. They're awesome to work with. You have a question over here?
Yes, there are several sites in our yard. We have a corner lot that's at the bottom of drainage.
Awesome.
Without trees anywhere, so it's an optimal site, but probably the most optimal in our yard is the only area that has basement behind it in our home.
Okay.
If we sign the agreement, the rain garden is installed and that bottom of that rain garden being at grade with levels in the basement that didn't have water retention issues before.
Sure.
If that results in now water backing up in our basement, is it possible for us to just terminate the agreement and fill in the rain garden? Because of an unforeseen consequence to our home, can we terminate the agreement under those terms?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the question for people online is about if there's any unforeseen consequences, such as placing the rain garden too close to a basement, and if the agreement can be terminated. I think our best plan of attack should be to make sure that it's far enough away. They typically say like 10 to 15 feet away from any foundation is appropriate to not have that water introduced. We can also do rain gardens that have, I don't have any pictures, but that have a drain tile at the end. So essentially the water will come into the garden as usual, be cleaned up by the plants in the soil, and then instead of continuing to infiltrate deeper into the ground, it'll be caught by that drain tile and head back towards the road. So we still get that water treatment value, but we're not maybe inundating your ground if you're concerned about something like that.
But to the question.
Oh, yeah, the agreement, sorry. The agreement, again, we're still kind of talking about the fine-tuned details, and we'll definitely have conversations about the agreement before anybody signs anything. It's difficult for us to say that you can terminate it just because we're doing it as a requirement for water treatment, and I just have to have those conversations with the watershed district to make sure that we don't become short on treatment and then we don't meet our goals or their goals. So we'll have to follow up on that later. I'm not sure about the termination.
If there was a situation where, because of the rain garden is pushing water into your basement, we'd certainly get this result.
Yeah.
So certainly, the city's a partner in this project. If you put a rain garden in your front yard, we have never had that happen before, but if we did, certainly we'd work with you to resolve that. And filling the rain garden might be an option.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
Question again, just to follow up to the question just asked, under what terms could you terminate? the contract. Is it,
Yeah.
when you sign it, you're locked in for life, or again, if somebody else buys the house, can they terminate it? Under what conditions could you terminate it?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You guys are hitting me with the hardest questions today.
What happens if I get tired of, or I get injured and I can't
Yeah.
no longer do what I'm supposed to do?
No, these are great
The
questions.
intention is that we have, interested, willing people to put these in their yards. And that they stay there for, a long time. And future buyers buy it knowing the garden's there and want that and maintain it. If you, get to a situation where you can no longer maintain yourself, we do have resources with the Conservation District where they have gardeners who love doing this work and some of them are retired, some of them just enjoy doing it. They're available to help you with these. So we do have resources for people that do put these in. So we try to provide resources, try to promote them, keep these gardens there, keep them in good shape, keep them looking good. As you drive throughout the community, you'll see that most of them look really good, and some of them 10+ years old. That's due to really engaged property owners on these. So we do look for people that are interested and engaged and want to have gardens in their front yards so long term.
Yeah, and that's a good, if I could take that opportunity to talk more about the maintenance, there's tons of resources online about here's how to maintain a rain garden, here's what a rain garden is. So if you're interested or trying to find out more, you can email me, I can send you some of those good resources. This document, again, it's just same maintenance as any other garden bed that you would have, like a planted garden bed. And you can see the one here, there might be some weeds in there, but the plants have filled in pretty good, that it's not looking sparse, or plant replacement happens only as needed. It's not like an annual planting little tiny plants. So the maintenance is pretty good, especially later on in its life, that it's not going to be really maintenance intensive, but your questions are really good. Do you have another one?
I, like other people here at Corner Lot, the bottom of the hill, the two houses upstream from me both have pools. And they flush their filters and everything else, the chemicals and stuff that they use, which go down the drain now. Well, how does that impact rain garden?
Yeah, that's a good question. You said they have pools? Okay, city code says that they're supposed to let it sit before they drain anything. Not saying that maybe everyone follows city code every day, but that's definitely something we can work with them to make sure that they're educated on best practices. If they are draining their pool, it should also go into the grass first. Well, the grass serves as a natural filter, lets it infiltrate as much as possible, and at least is able to start chipping away at those chemicals before the water gets downstream.
Typically I think it's when they back flush their filters.
Okay.
They have a pipe that comes right out to the street and it goes right into the street.
Okay, now that's against city code, so it's a different conversation.
You don't use in here.
Yeah, question in the back.
I'm reading the back of the seasonal garden here.
Yep.
And it says to avoid snow piles or chemicals on garden.
Yep.
And avoid salt.
Mm-hmm.
I don't salt the streets.
Yep.
The city salts the streets.
They sure do.
I don't plow the snow.
Mm-hmm.
There's snowbanks on the edge of my lawn. The city does that.
Yeah.
You certainly don't expect me to shovel that garden.
No, that's a really good
I
question.
mean, just to clarify.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. So the question was, if best practices are that you don't add salt, add chemicals, or add snow piles to the garden. It's gonna happen by default, like you're saying, it's adjacent to the roadway, it's gonna happen. That's definitely something to look at, or to monitor the first couple of years when that salt flush happens in the spring, to make sure we recognize what plants are surviving and not. That like minor, I would say minor-ish, depending on the year, deposit of snow is acceptable. The problem we see with rain gardens, mostly in commercial settings, is that they put it right at the end of the parking lot, and then they push all the snow all year into it. And that just decreases the lifespan of the rain garden, because you're adding all that fine silt, which is then going to clog the soil. The plants can't do their thing. The water can't do its thing. The pre-treatment facilities, the storm drain in front of the garden is actually really deep. So it'll catch that fine material that way, and then the city will come and clean that. But no one is expecting that you shovel out snow of your rain garden. No extra shoveling, in my opinion.
With normal city street clearing operations and salting, we haven't had issues with those plants.
Is it possible for signs to be made that just say rain garden, so when they do plow the snow, they know that these areas are more fragile, that they shouldn't be piling snow up 5 feet?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I would suggest, instead of signs, maybe it's more of an education, and again, with that like citing of where the rain gardens are best suited. If it's an area where snow is gonna be plowed or piled, maybe it's something that we reconsider of maybe this isn't a good spot for the rain garden. I just know with signs and snow plowing, then the signs end up plowed over on accident, is what I would guess would happen. So definitely something that we can work with our staff who do that area. Like Tony's mentioned, no issues in the Colby Lake neighborhood, and those are close to 10 years old. Are there other questions?
An online comment says, thank you for including the rain gardens in the project. This free landscaping is an awesome benefit to the homeowners and the environmental.
Thank you. Yes.
One more. Like I mentioned, we have a corner lot, a considerable amount of space one direction,
Awesome.
a fair amount of space the other. It's possible to get more than one.
Yeah.
Because we have flow coming from both directions,
Awesome.
and we wouldn't object to having more than one, not to be greedy, but can you have more than one?
You can have 3. No, I'm just kidding.
Thinking through it.
Yeah, no, you can have more than one. The question is how many can you have? It's gonna come down to siting and what we can fit reasonably in your yard, and obviously however you're comfortable with as well. But that's definitely, I hope we can go on a site visit and see all that space.
We're happy to maximize the size of the gardens.
Yeah,
Awesome.
the best
Thank you.
efficiency.
I'm really willing to minimize my mowing, so.
We love that too. Less watering too.